Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Welcome to the UA Disability Services Staff and Faculty Training Series. We are so excited to have you with us this morning. My name is Amber Caglin. I'm the Director for Disability Services at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. I'm here just to introduce our speaker today and get us going for this morning. A special thank you to Lorraine McConnell and Shemai K. Thacker and Disability Support Services Office at the UAA campus for the following introduction and land acknowledgement video.
All access, all the time. Sharing space together. When we come together online, we often don't feel connected to our land and can mistakenly imagine ourselves as disconnected from physical space. In reality, we join these virtual sessions from offices and homes built on the traditional, unceded lands of Indigenous tribes and peoples across North America. Disability Services would like to express gratitude for access to this beautiful, majestic land and for its caretakers. We also acknowledge that our shared virtual space exists because of physical infrastructure. Zoom servers connect us based on resources and availability. When you join us virtually, you're borrowing resources from other communities that make this sharing possible. If you don't know the Indigenous history of the land you occupy and would like to learn more, please visit native.land.ca. The University of Alaska acknowledges the Alaska Native Nations upon whose ancestral lands our campuses reside. University of Alaska Anchorage.
Dena'ina, Atnadine, Alutiiq, Sugpiaq, Chugachmute, and Eyak peoples.
University of Alaska Fairbanks.
Dina people of the lower Tanana River.
University of Alaska Southeast.
Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian peoples.
Welcome to the session.
All right, and now it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for the day, Danny Daum. Danny is the project coordinator of the Think College Inclusive Higher Education Network. She leads project implementation, including regional partnership development, training and technical assistance, and dissemination. Prior to Think College, Danny served in leadership roles at an inclusive post-secondary program and a state technical assistance center focused on the transition of students with disabilities in Florida. Danny's work has been focused on the development of inclusive college opportunities for students with disabilities. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Danny.
Thank you so much, Amber, and thank you everyone for tuning in today and joining me. It's an honor to be here, so thank you so much. And just give me 1 minute to get my screen pulled up. And as Amber mentioned, you will have my slides and this will be recorded. And so you have everything you need, and I'm always just an email or phone call away. I was listening to Amber talk about my bio, and I was thinking technical assistance is such a weird word. I assure you I'm not an IT or tech person. What we mean by that is we provide support. We literally talk on the phone, Teams, Zoom with people to talk about how to best include students with intellectual disabilities on colleges and universities. We're federally funded through some grant funding to do that work. So with all that aside, today we're going to be spending time talking about strategies for including students with intellectual disability on campus. And they're really strategies that will help all your students. Alrighty, and so for today, what you can expect is I'm going to start with just a little bit of background about Think College, which is the organization that I'm from, what we do, how this field sort of started. It's a pretty new field, so including students with intellectual disabilities in the college-university discussion, you'll get a little bit of background and a rationale for why it's important to do so. Then we'll roll into the majority of our time will be spent on how to promote inclusion and how to universally design services and supports and instruction on campuses to best include all learners. And then we'll end up with some resources and tools, and I'll share with you where to go for more. So there'll be slides with lots of links, and we know that you might not be able to click on them right away, but you will have my slides and you can go there later, and I can provide some specific recommendations based on what you're looking for. And then I hope we'll have some time to reflect and get questions answered. But with all that said, I'm here for you today. Amber and I connected over the summer at the AHEAD conference, and I was really excited that we were able to put this into practice and get everyone together today. So I'm here for you. I want to know what you're wondering about. I want to try to answer your questions, but I know that there's a lot of talented people on the meeting today, and so maybe we can even facilitate sharing across ourselves via the chat or by raising your hand and unmuting and sharing. So as I'm going through, please don't just feel like you have to sit and wait for me to pause or be done. Ask questions throughout. I think Amber and some other folks are monitoring the chat and will ping me and let me know to just pause for a minute, and we can unpack any questions that you have. And we will also have dedicated time to reflect and have some question and answer time too at the end. All right, and I somehow have mastered having the chat open on one screen too. So if I'm looking over here, that's what I'm doing. Just making sure everyone can still hear me and I'm still connected. So we'll get started. What is Think College? We are a National Technical Assistance Training and Resource and Evaluation Center dedicated to improving, expanding, and developing these types of programs for students with intellectual disability, and also really serving their families, students themselves, and beyond. We have 2 national centers, which are the logos that you see and the words that you see on the screen. The National Coordinating Center, which has been around since 2010, and they work with model demonstration programs, and they do a ton of work. That's sort of my sister program, to develop the research and knowledge base that has happened since the late 2000s. And then I'm the coordinator for the Inclusive Higher Education Network, the second national center. And we're really dedicated to expanding and building upon the work of the National Coordinating Center and trying to get more colleges and universities to be equipped to best serve students with intellectual disability. And we're funded, as I mentioned, out of the U.S. Department of Education in the Office of Post-Secondary Education. So all that to say, what do? We help develop college options for students with intellectual disabilities. We help improve existing programs and programming. We also try to put together as much information and get it out to students and families about the fact that college is an option for their young people with intellectual disability. And we also work a lot at the regional and state infrastructure building to help share among these programs and build sort of sustainability and support across programs in either a state or a region within the U.S. All right, so that's just a little bit about Think College and what we do. I should also say, I almost always say this, is we're federally funded, so we're not a business. Everything that we put together is free. It's been vetted by a lot of researchers and professionals. So I always say, like, nutritious and good for you. We're not selling you anything. We're paid by the federal government to help do this work and get more students with intellectual disabilities onto colleges and universities and help them be successful. I'm just pausing to look over at the chat. I don't see anything yet. So with that, we'll move into a little bit of the background, context, and benefits of including students with intellectual disability in college and university. So today, students with intellectual disability are enrolling in post-secondary education courses, so college, university courses for credit or sometimes for audit. They're earning credentials. They're working in paid jobs, both on and off campus. They're engaging in campus life, and they're learning to live interdependently. So yes, independently, but it's even better when we're all interdependent. So what are inclusive post-secondary ed programs? You might hear me say that phrase, IPSE, Inclusive Post-Secondary Ed. It's both a field, and then there's also programs that are referred to as this. So programs that are IPSE programs They offer students with intellectual disabilities the option of going to college or university, the option to be part of the campus community, living, learning, and working with their peers, completing a program of study and earning some type of credential, though that doesn't always mean a degree, building towards a future of learning opportunities, career, and living in their desired locations. And as I mentioned before, students do take classes. That's like absolutely one of the bedrocks of IPSE. But some students do audit, some credit, and it could be a mix depending even on one campus. And they're usually working towards some type of certificate or credential, but not always a degree per se. So what do students do in these types of programs? They have access to and engage in all the things that a traditional student would. So things like internships, social clubs, Greek life, fraternities and sororities, athletics, recreation, residence and dining halls, campus offices and services, and employment opportunities. Some key features of inclusive college programs are that they're student-centered in their approach. Many have alternative admissions processes and requirements, and I'll get a little bit more into that in just a moment or two. They have varying levels of course access, meaning maybe students won't have access to every course that's on in a course catalog, and also may not have access to take courses for credit. There may be working toward program-specific non-degree credentials. There may be housing opportunities, and some financial aid is available. So why include students with intellectual disability in college? Well, there's a lot of reasons why. It provides them a broader array of learning opportunities and to explore career-related topics. It supports that academic growth, but it also supports the social growth too, engaging with college peers. It also helps colleges and universities and faculty and resource development on a campus. And I have a little bit more specifics on that, but helps build capacity and responsiveness from a faculty and staff perspective. It also exposes those traditional college students to diverse people, and it's where the college students are. And this slide talks a little bit more about the transformative power of higher education, and I think that it's a good reminder. I know that I worked on a university for about 13 years before coming to Think College, and sometimes we forget like how important those college years and that experience is to growing up and figuring out what you want to do with your life. And so it's not just the classes, that's a big part of it, but it's having those friendships and roommates and relationships and navigating them. It's getting some real exposure to jobs and career possibilities, learning different social situations away from your family, exposure to new cultures and ideas, navigating and expanding your independence and getting your support needs met. So a little bit of advocacy there. But this is a really important one, learning about failure and making mistakes and learning from those mistakes, which in turn supports maturity and confidence, and how to handle and how to navigate future opportunities. Some other outcomes of higher ed, you get access, you know how to access desired knowledge. You start to figure out how to balance life and scheduling and all the demands beyond just when you're in, grade school. It's like school and family. How to handle failure and bounce back, sort of that resilience. What works for you and what doesn't, and what might be your next step. What is the future opportunities? So with that, I'm going to take a quick pause and transition to sharing a video, because I think that sometimes, hearing it from professionals is great, but hearing it from actual students, I think is so much better. So let me make sure I'm sharing the right screen here. And what I'm about to share with you is a 4-minute video that shares some faculty members, some students across 4 or 5 different campuses across the U.S. about their experiences in inclusive higher education. So these are all students with an intellectual disability, and all the faculty and leadership at universities are talking specifically about their engagement with students with intellectual disabilities and why it's such a game changer. And this is captioned. I just want to make sure it's as big as it can be, and then I will press go. And this was also developed as part of a public awareness campaign that we have been spearheading at Think College to try to just make more people aware that college is possible for students with intellectual disability. So with that, you know what? I need to make sure that I'm sharing screen the right way to optimize for sound. So one more brief pause. Sorry about that. Okay, and I think we're good. So sit back, relax, and there's some really great students featured in here. So enjoy this short video.
Hi everyone, I'm a student here at Georgia Tech. We are asking students with intellectual disabilities around the country what's fun about going to college.
It's a chance to not be around your parents.
The best thing about being in college is the food. Being in a dorm, getting to meet new people.
You have a bed, you have a sink, you have a desk, you have a TV, and you have a refrigerator. You can also hang up posters anywhere.
Great mocha latte, the best mocha latte I ever have.
There are more than 420,000 school-age students with intellectual disability, but only 2% of them are likely to attend college after high school.
I wanted to come to KU because of the classes, and I wanted to take choir. And also I took American Sign Language.
The classes I'm taking right now are Business Law 1, Intermediate Algebra, and English Composition 2.
It's cool to meet new people. It's fun to chat with the guys and the managers and the coaches.
I want to be more independent and to join the sorority as my mom did.
I like to hang out with friends, watch sports, and I joined the Southernmost Coral Restoration Club.
In high school, I have to be with a teacher all the time, so it was not like any independent there. I was excited to have like a college life.
There are more than 300 inclusive post-secondary education programs around the country.
Having students with disabilities in classes has compelled our faculty to reflect on their practice. So it actually makes us better teachers, makes us better professors, makes us better scholars and researchers.
It's really got people to realize that we have to focus on universal access and doing things in universal design, everything that we do.
The great thing about including students with intellectual disabilities at KU is actually it makes the entire university a better university. It teaches students to appreciate difference, and it creates a more caring environment because students support each other.
This has united, I think, our campus faculty, staff, and students. They have the opportunity to network and get mentors and other social skills and career development that their peers have had for many years. Now they have.
I want to go into real estate in the future.
My goal is to be a teacher at a preschool.
I always know that run a bed and breakfast.
Political science is one of 3 career goals I have in mind.
My credo is maybe work in the Kansas State Capitol.
I would like to have my own food truck because I want to have pizza, have some burgers, maybe have some tacos, nachos.
College has changed me because it's helped me grow up, like getting a job or living on your own.
It's great, and you'll have a lot of support when you get here.
If I can do it, you can do it, you know.
It's a time to be serious. It's a time to learn. I have the skills. I have the skills to live on my own one day.
Think higher. Think college for students with intellectual disability. Think, access, employment, equity, options, diversity, independence, confidence, friendship. College is possible for students with intellectual disability. Take the first step at thinkhighered.net, a project of Think College.
Alrighty. I just put a question in the chat while I'm going back to my other screen. If you're comfortable and you want to share in the chat just any takeaway from the video or anything that stood out for you that you think you could use in your work or that even changed your mind about anything. So yeah, if you'll do that, and I'm transitioning back to my right share screen. Okay. Oh, thank you. Deanne said it makes me feel inspired and excited. And Jason said, I think it was interesting that some of the students noted wanting to be away from their parents and family. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you both for sharing that. And I hope you enjoyed that. We worked really hard to put together something short and to the point to show student voices and administrators on college and university campuses' voices telling about why this work is so important. Yeah, the independence and confidence of the students can get is wonderful. Landon mentioned in the chat. So thank you for being brave and putting something in there. So just to wrap up a little bit more about the background and context of including students with intellectual disability and colleges and universities, you might be wondering how frequent does this happen? How much is this happening across the United States? And this map is a couple months old now. So I know we have close to 350, and that number hovers. Sometimes it's like 354, sometimes it's 348, but close to 350. Which is great. That's amazing. Like 10 years ago, it was like 150. So we've been steadily increasing. I'll tell you more about the legislation that really supports this too. But we have a lot of work to do. It's something that I show this. I probably need a second slide to say, but there are over, 6,000, between 6,000 and 7,000 colleges and universities across the United States and career and technical education schools too. And so, we're just now starting to scratch the surface of, the need and ensuring students have a lot of options. In some states, they do have a lot of options, and others they don't. So there's definitely a need to continue to expand in this area. So how did we get here? I mentioned the legislation, so we'll talk about that. The Higher Ed Opportunity Act, the reauthorization in 2008, actually was the game changer for these serving this student population. And so before that, there were, some amazing grassroots sort of programs occurring across the U.S., probably about 25 to 50, depending on how you would define these types of programs. But with the Higher Ed Opportunity Act reauth, they really put the investment in inclusive post-secondary ed in a number of ways. And so that's what you see on this slide is some of the ways that the doors became open for students with intellectual disability. So first off, it created a federally supported pathway for college students with intellectual disability. It did this by defining and creating a comprehensive transition and post-secondary program, a CTP type program, which then also provided access to federal financial aid for students. Before that, students that didn't have a typical high school diploma and didn't have didn't meet certain entrance requirements, weren't able to even apply for FAFSA for federal aid or, apply to be enrolled in a college or university. They also, the Higher Ed Opportunity Act, started the model demonstration projects and the National Coordinating Center for the TPSIDs. And TPSID stands for Transition and Post-Secondary Program for Students with Intellectual Disability. And so that's where the National Coordinating Center started, and the funding for that center since 2010. And since 2010, there have been 3 different cohorts of model demonstration programs, and those are 5-year grant cycles. And so much of the data that I'll show you, and I didn't go too heavy on the data, but we have a lot of it, comes from these model demonstration programs, and the National Coordinating Center sort of evaluates and synthesizes all of that data for the last 15 years. And then also most recently, although it's been a priority since 2008 when this Higher Ed Opportunity Act was reauthorized, it supported the development of program accreditation standards. So really taking it to the next level of, this isn't just a nice thing to do to have one of these programs, but actually that these are valued, structured, you know, I'm missing the word, but like diligent, like these are really substantial programs that deserve accreditation. And there's a lot around accreditation. There's an actual council on accreditation in this field now. So we're really proud of that. And it's still emerging compared to, you know, college and university departments that have been around for 40, 50 years or more. So just seeing like how much this field has come along in the last 15 to 20 years, there's growing funding and knowledge and excitement around it. There's over $175 million in federal funding. Over 16 states have actual state budget lines and support either scholarships and even in some cases program development funds, including in Florida where I'm from. And you could see we have a number of programs because of that. We have a database and data on over 5,000 students, including some longitudinal data. So that really supports a growing research base, and we have accreditation options and training on how to become accredited. So I talked about those TPSIDs. Again, those are the model demonstration projects, and we have 13 completed years of data. We're right now in the 14th year of working through all the data analysis. But just a quick summary to show the impact of these model demonstration projects. There's been almost 4,000 paid jobs, students with intellectual disability with paid jobs while in their program. These students have enrolled in over 64,000 courses. They've enrolled in inclusive courses at over almost 30,000. Inclusive course enrollment would mean a traditional college course that's listed and open to any student, so academically inclusive. And then there have been about 2,400 students who have completed a program and earned a credential of some kind. So I'll pause there. Was there any questions in the chat? I thank you all for sharing your thoughts on the video. That's great. I'm not seeing any questions as of yet. So with that, we'll turn to a couple slides on how students with intellectual disabilities are supported on a college campus. So there's sort of 2 routes. There's open admissions, and it sounds like the majority of students served on your campuses are probably in this top bracket where they come in sort of through the front door, which is great, and so they have access to supports and accommodations that are available to all students with disabilities. And that's really awesome. And a lot of community colleges and career and tech ed schools serve students in that manner. So they're served a lot of times through the Disability Supports Office. And in a way, that's like the most inclusive way to have students with intellectual disability on campus. For many universities in particular, there are specialized programs that are developed to support this population of students, and that is because usually their graduation or high school diploma credential and other requirements wouldn't allow them to apply traditionally. So in that case, a lot of times there's a totally different admissions process or a modified admissions process. And so they have access to all the supports that a traditional student with a disability has, plus some specialized support and sort of program and some staff that help support that program. These might be what are called comprehensive transition programs, a CTP, which that is what helps enable a student to apply for federal financial aid, not loans, but certain kinds of aid. But not all of them are. To become a comprehensive transition and post-secondary program, you do have to apply through, like, you amend your financial aid application to add that sort of into your package, and it is a sort of a process, an application process. Also, some of those specialized programs might be part of those model demonstration programs that I was just talking about, the TPSIDs. And some are neither. They're neither a CTP or a TPSID. And I know that's a lot of jargon and acronyms. I don't really think much of that matters, and you'll have my slides if you ever want to go back to that. Oh, great. And Jessica mentioned in the chat, the Tapestry program was established in the College of Health, the Center for Human Development, and in 2010 with TPSID funds. So they were part of the cohort 1 of TPSIDs, which is amazing. That's great. So college students with an intellectual disability, so they're admitted as students, they're eligible for accommodations, as I mentioned. They can take courses, and again, it's a range of if students take courses for credit or for audit. If they're auditing, modifications can be provided, but if they're going for credit, then it would just be the traditional accommodations. And in those sort of dedicated programs, there might be additional support provided to the students and staffing for that. I think I already covered that. So before we get too much further, I just wanted to mention that inclusive courses really matter for a number of reasons. And so I have 2 slides about this, and I'm really passionate about it. I did some, actually my dissertation over 7 years ago looked at so actually, it was cohort 1. I was part of a cohort 1 TPSID in Florida, and looked at the impact of these programs. And I actually found that time and inclusive college courses really impacted students' employment outcomes at the end. And I looked at different things like career development activities and social engagement activities, and I couldn't find any statistical significance there. It was the amount of college courses that they took. And inclusive college courses, meaning college courses that are like your traditional academically inclusive courses with every other student, really, really makes a big difference. First of all, it gives them a greater array of course content. If you're just providing a couple selected courses to students, they're not getting like the full range of options that you would have on your campus. They're getting greater exposure to college, to peers without disability, with and without disabilities. And it's that potential to actually earn college credits and be, starting a robust transcript and resume. It also benefits the college and a college campus. It helps faculty and staff to be more responsive to diverse learners, and it supports the other students to learn how to work with peers with, diverse abilities and talents and needs, and which will really translate in the employment career sector. And there's been a few different studies from faculty members who have included students with intellectual disabilities in their classes, and this is just one of them from 2021. There's probably about 7 different studies that have come out in the last few years. So people are looking at this to show that not only do these, to intentionally including students with intellectual disabilities, obviously benefits them, but it benefits the whole, environment, including the instructional aspect of a college class. So these are just a few of the benefits. It improves learning. Faculty said that students with intellectual disability often bring up really thoughtful questions that others just might not think to ask. It also helps sort of break like icebreakers, like, people might be reluctant to ask questions, but often having, students with more diverse perspectives and experiences can help open that up. It also improves teaching. Faculty said, it stretches them and challenges them to be better, to break down their complex concepts and make it more accessible for all. So some people say it makes them a better teacher. And it improves the class environment. So, oftentimes students with intellectual disability bring a level of enthusiasm and a positive attitude, and that can be contagious and improve the environment for everyone. So with that, I'm going to pause, just check the chat. It's looking good. Just a reminder, you're welcome to ask questions in the chat if you joined late. Just wanted to say that. Or raise your hand and you can unmute yourself and ask your question in that way as well. So with that, we're going to turn to what I said was the meat of this presentation, which is what you can do and how to better support students with intellectual disabilities and other disabilities on campus. And so we'll first talk about some more general accommodation ideas and supportive strategies, and then we'll talk more in depth about universal design, which will certainly get into universal design for learning pretty heavily, but we'll zoom out and talk about universal design more in general first too. So some accommodations and related strategies that can be helpful, just at first blush, some opportunities to practice new skills and concepts before an assessment, and discussing outlines and drafts and assignments before submitting. So just having that dialogue and faculty that are open to those can be game changers. Also having an individual orientation to a laboratory, a workshop, or a studio so that a student is more comfortable accessing it. Providing reading lists before the start of the course so a student could get a head start. And providing simplified or step-by-step instructions for certain tasks, either with verbal or written instructions or diagrams. And I didn't write it here, but I should have. Even video. A lot of times just listening or watching a video demonstration can go a long way. And that's something that if you record for one student, you might as well put it up and on your learning management system or platform and let all sort of use it. We're all different types of learners. We have our different strengths and preferences. A few others, obviously, providing assistive technology and providing multiple formats in the terms of how information is shared. I think a really good idea, and maybe I should have done this for this session, is a glossary of technical and professional jargon, depending on, if you're in a specific discipline that has their own set of jargon. This is a new thing that I'm getting better at, using artificial intelligence, which is AI, to offer plain language text and summaries of things. And they can also help summarize your lectures too. And of course, recordings of your lectures. And these are some strategies and also accommodations related to assessments and exams. So obviously extensions on deadlines, additional time to complete exams, alternative exam venue that is free of distraction, so private, support in exams such as reading questions and or scribing answers, and then also oral feedback on assignments in addition to written feedback. And again, technology makes a lot of this so, I don't want to say easy, but less time consuming. So I talked a little bit earlier about modifications, so wanted to just sort of break that down a little bit. I didn't want to, a lot of times you hear the phrase accommodations and modifications all in, one phrase or breath, and they really are two different things. So this slide talks a little bit more about that and when each would be used. So with accommodations, that's what you would get if a student was earning college credit. So they're provided to ensure equal access, but no modifications are made to the content or the assessment requirements. If a student is auditing a college course, they would get the accommodations, but they'd also get modifications. And it could be things like reduced reading load, alternative assignments or test formats, and reduced requirements. So the actual The what and the what is assessed changes and is often reduced. But that's not always provided, especially if the students are taking courses for credit. So I have two examples here just to sort of unpack that a little bit more. And so the first is a 4-credit course example. This is a child development course. So you see in the left column, the course requirement. So, and then in the center column is accommodations, and on the right column is modifications. With the course requirement for readings for each class, some accommodations could be books on tape, providing reading lists before the start of the class. And of course, this is a 4-credit example, so there are no modifications. With observations as a course requirement, observations with small children to identify developmental stages. An accommodation could be that information is provided in multiple formats, such as a chart providing concrete examples of developmental levels, in addition to just the textbook. And then again, of course, no modifications. And then for tests, extra time, a quiet room, staff reading questions and scribing answers. And then in terms of final grade awarded, it's an A through F system at this particular example. So, they get a final grade of C if they earn it, of course. And then an audit example for a first-year seminar class. So again, course requirements on the left, accommodations in the center, and modifications on the right. Readings for the class, providing a reading list before the start of class would be an accommodation. And a modification could be, instead of being required to reading that, or in addition to that, watching summary videos on YouTube. Another course requirement, the small group presentation, which is delivering brain research in the media. The accommodation could be providing that oral feedback on the assignment as well as written feedback. And maybe they don't have modifications for that. Maybe they don't have a need for it, especially since it's a group assignment. They might not need a modification. But for example, when designing a research study, that seems like a more one-on-one assignment. So they get, as an accommodation, a glossary of technical terms. But their modification, instead of maybe a several-page essay or study design, they write a 1-paragraph for each section. So it's a reduced length. And then instead of getting a final grade awarded, that's an A through F system, it would be a pass-fail grade that's awarded. So it just sort of highlights a couple more concrete examples. All right, so I want to check in. I feel like I've been talking for a while. I know that a lot of you probably have experience, pretty extensive experience, providing accommodations to students with disabilities, including students with intellectual disabilities. So what other accommodation examples have you used that you've seen be used that were successful? If you're comfortable sharing in the chat or raising your hand, and you can unmute and share. I'm going to take a sip of water. Deanne said, I have not done video and audio feedback, but I would like to try it. That's great. Rachel said, posting the slide deck ahead of time so people can read ahead or follow along. Absolutely. I know that helps me. I really I need a visual so that I know cues for listening. That's excellent. We'll continue to put in some examples that you have. Extended deadlines at multiple schools. Thanks, Jason. Multiple formats for content. Perfect. Yeah, I see some thumbs up. So keep those coming, because I think those are, it's great to share amongst, everyone on this, this Zoom meeting for ideas. So to segue from accommodations to universal design, which is what we'll talk about next. So again, accommodations are provided to provide equal access to the material being taught, but the more universal the design, the less the need for specialized accommodations. So it could actually sort of ease up the need for accommodations, which is probably good for your disability services office to not have this, heavy burdened load of accommodations, because the more that is universally designed within a classroom or within even an office that provides support, then you don't need as many accommodations. And so there's an example here. This is a pretty basic example, but closed captioning not only helps someone who is deaf, but it is beneficial to anyone who has a moderate hearing problem or just prefers visual learning to auditory lecturing. All right, so getting into universal design. How much do you all know about universal design? So what do you know? Or if you don't want to share that, what are you wondering about with universal design? And you're welcome to raise your hand and take off mute if that's easier than typing in the chat. Provides options, yep. What else? And it's perfectly understandable to say, I don't know. I've heard of UDL, but you just have UD here. What does that mean? If a course is, oh, good, I think we have a question. If a course is taken as an audit, then that is what would appear on a transcript, not a pass-fail. I have not seen what you described before. I think that maybe that's a university-specific or campus-specific question. I don't know if anyone has an answer to that, but we could definitely unpack that too. I know every university or college does it a little bit differently, but oftentimes when students are taking a course for audit, they don't get a traditional letter grade. They get pass or fail. But that might not be accurate at AU. So just a disclaimer. Or at UA, sorry. Ariane said, I'm pretty confident with it on an elementary education level, but I'm clueless about it on higher ed, particularly for online courses. Oh, so I'm glad you're wondering about, how does this apply to higher ed and how does, this apply in online environments? So I do have some tips and tricks for that. So yay. So yes. Oh, yay. And Kai talked about, or Kaya, I'm sorry, I hope I didn't butcher your name. Some physical things like curb cuts and things that benefit all users. So great. Thank you for following along on the chat. That's great. So perfect. That really, you all talked about different things that are definitely applicable here. So some examples of universal design, a lot of the photos on this page show more like physical and environmental examples. So things like wheelchair ramps, curb cuts, but also thinking through adjustable tables, large print books, text messages, keyless entry, signage, large letters, braille pictures, and then physical space, large restroom doorways and stalls. Those are some examples. In summary, universal design in general just means that you're designing things from the start to be as usable, accessible, and inclusive as possible. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's just offering options or alternatives, as someone said in the chat. Design from the start rather than adding on later. And I think that's a real key piece. It's just being proactive in your planning. And it's designed to increase access opportunities. So I know that in the universal design research, there's universal design applied to several different areas, and there's all these different principles. So it's hard to keep them together, like what goes with what. And I don't think it truly matters that much for this context, but I did want to just call out some of the principles or all the principles of universal design as it relates to higher education. So there's 7. It's equitable use, flexibility in use, simple and intuitive use, perceptible information, tolerance for error, low physical effort, and size and space for approach and use. So you can think about that in sort of the classroom, in all the facilities on a campus, in the information that's shared on a website, and so on and so forth. And I will highly recommend, if this is an area that speaks to you and you want to know more about, and I have no, I don't know Sheryl Burgstahler, but you can't see it, but I'm holding up the book that's on the screen. It's called Creating Inclusive Learning Opportunities in Higher Education, a Universal Design Toolkit. And it's from 2020. And I think that they have been doing this work. I think she's from the University of Washington. And they've been doing the work on universal design for a long, long time, but this is the first book that really brings it into higher education. And I think she did a great, great job. And so the citation for this is at the very end of the slide deck, but a lot of the next bit of information comes from this universal design toolkit and the focus in higher education. So a lot of it speaks to instruction. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with universal design for learning, and that's great. And we're going to talk about that a lot. But I also want you to think about, the other aspects of the student experience, from the offices and departments they're interacting with, the services that they're receiving or trying to receive or learn more about, like career services, for example, or student services. And the information technology that's infused, whether it's how you're delivering courses, both in person, hybrid, and online, and then obviously your physical spaces too. So here are a few examples of a universal design principle and then examples in practice. I think I always do that. I talk over my slides, like I know what's coming up, so I start to talk about it already. But in terms of equitable use, you could think about your career services office, our job postings in formats that are accessible to people with a range of abilities, disabilities, ages, backgrounds, and technology. That last one is a huge one. Not everyone has access to high-speed Wi-Fi or has access to a computer. A lot of people are accessing the majority of their web content on their phones or a tablet. In terms of perceptible information, think through your residence halls. Is the alarm system, does it have visual, oral, and kinesthetic characteristics? In terms of size and space for approach and use, think about a science lab and having an adjustable table and flexible work area that are usable by students who are both right or left-handed and have a wide range of physical characteristics. And then multiple means of representation, which is one of the universal design for learning principles. Promoting services using multiple forms of accessibly designed media that are used to communicate the services provided. Just gives you some examples. So we'll sort of hone in on universal design for learning for a lot for the next bit. So drop any questions or anything you have. I'm going to go back to the chat for just a minute because looks like there's some great stuff in here. So Brenna mentioned universal design means that I do not have to adjust my course to accommodate because it already is accommodating the way I built it. Bingo, like couldn't have said it better myself, Brenna. So I think I had on a slide earlier, not retrofitting, designing for inclusivity from the beginning. Web pages designed with all learners in mind, so having visual cues and etc. Absolutely, Deb. And I usually think of universal design as physical, so it's interesting to hear about other ways to implement UD. That's great. Thanks, Lauren. Alrighty, so universal design for learning. It's an educational approach that offers students multiple ways to learn, to demonstrate what they've learned, and to engage. It's the design of teaching and learning products and environments to be usable to the greatest by all people to the greatest extent possible without the need for adaptation or specialized design. You can see a little bit better, maybe, depending on what kind of learner you are, in this graphic. So here in purple, you see the what of learning. So as you're supporting recognition learning, And also, so this is the principle and then some instructional techniques. So with that, you would provide multiple examples, highlight salient points, present information in multiple formats, and support that building context and background knowledge. In terms of UDL Principle 2, which is support strategic learning, the how of learning, you would provide flexible models of skilled performance, provide opportunities to practice with support, provide that ongoing and relevant feedback, and offer flexible opportunities for demonstrating that knowledge or skill. And then supporting effective learning in green, the why of learning, you would offer choice of content and tools, offer adjustable levels of challenge, foster peer interaction and feedback, and offer choices of learning context. So we'll unpack that a little bit more. I have lots of ideas and strategies and examples that I think help with digesting that. We're not going to watch this TED Talk, but I do highly recommend it. It's called The Myth of Average. Has anyone seen it before? The Myth of Average? You might have to click on it to see if you've seen it. But I love this quote, and so I'm going to read it aloud. And it's from the Burgstaller Universal Design and Higher Ed Toolkit. But I think it gets at the gist of what we're trying to do. So rather than designing for the typical or average student and then relying on accommodations determined by the Disability Services Office to address the inaccessible features of the course for individual students who are not typical, instructors who apply the Universal Design for Instruction, UDI, anticipate the enrollment of students with diverse abilities and other characteristics and make design decisions accordingly. So kind of goes back to that just sort of proactive design to make it as accessible as possible from the get-go, and then reducing the burden of having to provide specialized instruction or specific accommodations. So you might be thinking, all right, I'm here, which is great. You showed up, so A+ for that. Well, why should I care? Like, you know, what does this sort of mean to me? So a couple slides about that and who universal design benefits. So obviously you all have, you know, you're confronted by a number of challenges every day. Changing population of students taking your courses. Maybe you don't have formal training as a teacher. You have the content expertise in a particular area, or you provide services on a campus. And so you might not know the best principles of teaching, and that's fine, and that's natural. And so having an effective strategy and framework to apply universal design, that can really help you become a better teacher, a better service provider, and meet the needs of a broad range of students. Why use it? Well, it's a scientifically valid framework for guiding educational practice, if you care about that. It facilitates the design and implementation of a flexible and responsive curriculum. It really helps improve access for all, and it'll help all students participate and progress by reducing barriers to instruction. And as the student population grows in diversity, you know, Universal Design for Learning has really gained recognition as a promising and practical and effective framework to reach a wide range of learners. And then again, the Higher Ed Opportunity Act talks about it and promotes the universal design. So it's pretty important, and it's not something really that new, but it's been sort of tried and true. But probably more importantly, who benefits from UDL? And there's a lot of different populations that would benefit. So for instance, I'm not going to read the whole list, but a smattering of individuals who speak English as a second language, adult learners, busy people, international students, academically underprepared students, that's probably a big one, full-time workers, digital savvy students, and also on the other end, students that are technophobic. They do not like technology or they're afraid of technology. So it helps all students. It helps us to really think through our practices and our planning and our approach. So in short, it benefits everyone. So the next bit of slides are some strategies that you can use now, and it's organized in these, I should have numbered them, that would have been more universally designed areas. So it looks like there's 7 different areas. And I'm just checking the chat real quick. All right, and so we'll start with, and as you're thinking about how you're designing your universal design within a classroom or instructional context, these are the areas that you might sort of chunk how you're planning. So everything from class climate, the interaction within your class about the content that you're providing, the physical environment and the materials that you're providing, your instructional delivery methods, the information resources and technology, your feedback loop and assessment, and then accommodations. So within class climate, these are some of the ways that you can help a supportive and a universally designed climate. So welcoming everyone, avoiding stereotypes, being approachable and available and responsive, helping to motivate all students, address individual and in an inclusive manner, and avoid segregating or stigmatizing any student. And those seem pretty straightforward. I feel like most people who teach would do most of those things intentionally anyway. Some tips to help with making your course materials more accessible. Several of you mentioned this in the chat, posting your content, your slide deck, your readings in advance online. If it's going to be a lot of, working within a certain text or reading, providing a hard copy, especially if a student requests it. Using alt text with graphics and other things, balancing graphics with text, adding links to direct students wherever possible, using styles and formatting and headings so that if a student took your slide deck or PowerPoint and used the outline feature, it would provide a really great pre-made outline for them. And some of the technology that you can use, and it keeps getting better and better and easier to do this. There's lots of templates in Microsoft Office pages and PowerPoint. I didn't put that in there, but PowerPoint's been great about having a really robust accessibility checker. Google Docs and Google Slides is also pretty good, and Canva too. This is a rubric for assessing your syllabus. And so there's a ton of resources out there. I think I have a slide at the very end for where to find tools and things about how to universally design your rubric. And that's really like from the very beginning, setting your course up for success. But just to sort of walk you through what a UDL syllabus is. So a traditional rubric or a traditional syllabus, which is in yellow, it's on the left-hand column. It has no or minimal information in calendar form. It's just like a lot of words. They're usually offered in hard copy on the first day of class. So a student can't look at it ahead of time. They just get it in class and they're looking at it the first time they're in a class. An enhanced version of a syllabus would be, and that's in the middle column, is that it utilizes a calendar to specify due dates for different activities and assignments, and it's provided in hard copy and electronically upon a student request. And an exemplary gold star would be that your syllabus and learning management system, which is like Canvas or Blackboard, there's a lot of them out there. You utilize your course calendar to specify those due dates and reinforce those due dates. You highlight key course events. So it's in there, from the start. As soon as that course opens, a student can get in there and look at the syllabus. And also that whole learning management system is fleshed out using the syllabus deadlines and guidelines so that it's sort of in both places and really guides a student. And obviously that it's made available both electronically and in hard copy if a student needs it. In terms of interaction within your course, offering options for communication and collaboration often and requiring cooperative learning as part of your courses is huge. And it's really helpful, and it helps definitely reduce the need for specific accommodations. So getting students working together, and it helps people just become more comfortable working with people that are different than them and more similar to them than they probably thought. One, let's see, did I skip a slide? Sorry. There we go. Okay, guided notes. So these are notes that have, they're sort of like close, like you've probably seen like close passages, but you can provide a copy of notes with some of the key information taken out and are blank so that students can follow along. They have like a lot of the framework of the notes, but they still have to listen along for key information. That really helps you ensure that the information the students are getting and that they're following along with your lecture. And it can really help students with test prep as well. So you can use, Word, PowerPoint, Keynote, all kinds of things to do that. And it helps students sort of reduce the load of having to write so much or type so much verbatim of what you're saying. It sort of takes that pressure off so that they can more actively participate or sit back and take the cues from the guided notes of what information is so the most important. Another sort of, you could do this as part of the guided notes, or you could do rotating note takers. So assign each class period or half of a class period, a quarter even, depending on the level of content and the length of the class, to contribute as a note taker. And that way everyone has access to these great notes, and it's not every student has to take really specific notes every day of the class. So some physical and virtual environment aspects to consider. So ensure the physical access to facilities, arrange instructional spaces to maximize inclusion and comfort. And that sort of goes back to that science lab example earlier of having adjustable height desks and not and having enough space around us so that it accommodates wheelchair users, scooter users, people that are right and left-handed, really tall people, short people, all of that, and can really maximize comfort so people can learn when they're, not crunched into a tight space. Yeah, and ensuring everyone can use equipment and materials, and also ensuring safety. So when there's lots of trippable hazards, that's not safe or comfortable for anyone. In terms, I have a few slides on instructional delivery, but I didn't want to just check the chat real quick. There was another really great tip in here, making sure there is enough contrast between the text and background and slides, and that the font is big enough. Absolutely. And there are guidelines out there on that. And it's hard to do. I mean, I struggled here sometimes, like making sure that, not to pack too much on one slide. But yeah, definitely. And if you needed concrete guidelines, I can follow up after. I don't know that I put any in this slide deck, but there are definitely some out there for you. In terms of instructional delivery techniques, really ensuring relevance. So making examples and assignments relevant to the learners, and really considering a range and getting to know the student population you're working with and their interests and backgrounds to help build in that relevance. Scaffolding, and so that includes offering outlines, summaries, graphic organizers, and other tools. Guided notes would be something that would fall into the scaffolding piece. And I know sometimes faculty might be like, well, I'm doing the work for the students. But Yes, but you're probably already making an outline for yourself for a lecture, and or if you're using a slide deck and you're using the headings and the rest appropriately, it sort of generates an outline version. So it's a lot easier than you think. It's a lot easier than it used to be with different accessibility technology that's at your fingertips. And it helps you. So I'm sure a lot of you that work with students know this. Many students don't do a great job of picking out the most important information. So if you're the one providing a summary or a graphic organizer or an outline, you're sort of helping the student suss out what is the most important aspect that they need to know for an exam or, for an exit criteria or something like that. Practice, lots of practice opportunities to help reduce the stress, reduce the anxiety around whether it's a project, whether it's a presentation or an exam or test of some kind, allowing time for the activities and projects, giving details of those assignments way ahead of time and in the syllabus so students can start planning accordingly and starting early, especially if they know it's going to take them a long time, or if they know they have other things going on. All of our students come to us and their parents and caregivers and, family members, and they work and, they just have a lot. So knowing what's coming up is really helpful to help people manage their time. And then providing feedback on parts of the project or corrective opportunities. So not just failing a student or giving, an F or a D on a paper, but giving feedback and allowing resubmission if it's a paper or a project to help develop that mastery and help students learn from their mistakes. And Brianne mentioned for relevance, going back to the relevance piece, she's seen a lot of success in offering options for assignments so learners can select the assignments that connect with them most. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And I have a slide about that. So I'm going to actually zoom to it really quick because it shows just that. So sorry if I just made you seasick with going forward, but this, and I know it's kind of hard to see, but you'll have my slide deck. I did a screenshot which showed it's from a syllabus describing an assignment. So this is an example of how you can provide students with options in it to select their own topic for a project and within reason, and I'll read you some of those. And then also the format for their project. So this is part of a disability and education class. It's from one of my colleagues that teaches a class like that in Ohio. And she provides like this whole list of, it looks like there's like 12 to 15 different areas there. Things from global disability history, the student-directed IEPs, co-teaching practices, and inclusive classrooms. So there's all kinds of projects there, or they could select a topic not listed here, but with prior approval from your course instructor. So the student gets to choose which project speaks most to them and is most relevant to what they want to do with this course content. Then they get to select the type of format that they want to demonstrate. Demonstrate their knowledge. So they could build a website, create a screencast of a narrated PowerPoint or slide deck. They could create a brochure. They could build a teacher toolkit. They could write a paper. I mean, the traditional is still an option too. Or they could create a YouTube video on the topic. And again, another caveat of if there's a format that's interesting to you, just ask the professor and we can talk about it. So that's a really, really great example. And I had that packed over an assessment, but that just goes back to the relevance too. And I know I have a lot of slides, so I might skip through some because I just wanted to provide you with more rather than less. And you might be able to go back to this and dig in on the aspects that you are most interested in. But I do see Jason has his hand up, so I'm going to go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question about when there's so many options. I've tried this a couple of times, and students want basically they want to know how they'll be graded for each one. And for a lot of students, I think they're just trying to judge which one will be the easiest.
Yeah.
But they're looking for like a rubric for each possible combination. And the more open I made it, the harder it was for me to sort of provide that rubric or that grading guideline, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a very real challenge. Yeah, absolutely. And I like that you mentioned rubrics, and we'll talk about that too. And in that case, maybe one idea that comes to mind is once a student chooses which option, like both their topic and their how they're demonstrating, coming up with, and this would take some instructor time, of course, co-creating like what the minimum requirements would look like. So it's not just the professor saying what it is, like maybe have them pitch together, like, okay, I want to do the YouTube video option on the school to prison pipeline. And so I'm going to make it 4 to 5 minutes, and I'm going to make sure that I include 5 research articles in this. And making them come up with a rubric or some minimum requirements. That's just one approach. But yeah, obviously that was a pretty long list of options. That might be overwhelming. So you could always scale it back a little bit to offer a little bit less, but still some options. And I don't know if anyone else has potential solutions for Jason too. Yeah, thanks for sharing. And if anyone else has questions or comments or want to share, feel free to raise your hand and you can come on camera. That would be great. In terms of some additional delivery methods, instructional delivery methods, I think it's important to, assume that there's a wide range of technology skills out there, everyone from like the digital natives, very tech savvy, and knowing that even digital natives that are, have had a smartphone at their disposal since they were born, they might not know how to use it for learning necessarily. So just keeping that in mind, and then also supporting the other learners that might not have all of the skills the tech skills needed for a course, being really intentional about that. Providing options for learning by presenting content in multiple ways. So, text, video, audio, images, the more variety, the better, because everyone sort of thrives and learns a little differently. Offering options for communicating and collaborating. Some people love to speak up in classes or love to raise their hand, even in virtual environments. Some would rather, submit in a discussion board, not talking in front of people. So just keeping that in mind and offering students a variety of ways to be engaged. We talked about this, the options for demonstrating learning, so portfolios, presentations, videos, discussions, having different types of test items, and adjusting the language skills, so spelling out acronyms, defining terms, avoiding use of jargon, and also, and I didn't add this here, but I mentioned it earlier, but using plain language as much as possible, and AI, artificial intelligence, can really help with that. It's not a wholesale solution. You really have to go back and look at it, but it can really help start to pare down the content and make it plain language. So the next few slides have just a few examples and scenarios. So this one, the problem was that a computer science professor had received criticism for not providing enough context in his lectures or background in his lectures. And so he started to open lectures with an overview of key terms and their importance. So sort of just taking a few steps back and starting there and not making assumptions about what students know. These two examples, one was a psychology professor added flexibility in the final exam by offering a take-home exam or an in-class exam, so students could choose. And then a statistics professor distributing notes to the entire class so that they could use them for future reference and review them for exams. And they could, sort of listen more and add on to those notes. few more. One scenario, and that's up in the left box. Faculty and instructors don't know what students are supposed to get out of their courses. So working with faculty to develop essential questions that students should be able to answer as a result of attending each class can help really dial in the course content and focus the learning. Another scenario on the right-hand side, you'll see that faculty and instructors lack the time to modify their lectures or notes to meet the needs of students. So one potential solution, students can use AI, artificial intelligence, to transcribe the lectures. There's a lot more now. When this slide was made, Otter AI was like one of the main sort of transcribers, but there are many now. Read AI comes to mind, and some others that have some decent entry-level free packages, and probably student subscriptions as well. And then they can also use AI to summarize them based on their reading level and comprehension, and ChatGPT can do that. And I'm sure others can too. So those are a little bit of concrete examples. Moving into, we've just got a few more aspects to consider. The information, resources, and technology. So selecting materials early, providing content that is accessible, accommodating a variety of reading levels and technical skills and technology skills, ensuring the availability of appropriate assistive technology. And then in terms of assessment and feedback, and I have a few slides on assessment, setting clear expectations, testing in the same manner in which you teach, minimizing time constraints when appropriate, offering regular feedback and corrective opportunities. We talked about some of this already. Providing multiple ways for students to demonstrate what they've learned, monitor and adjust, and provide sample test questions, examples of what you would score a 5 on a rubric, exemplary work, and study guides. And the slide I showed earlier has a lot of different scenarios for assessment strategies, but just encouraging students to choose their medium, whether it's a video, a speech, a discussion, a paper, even a 2-minute paper summary, recording a video, developing some type of e-portfolio or a website. There's a lot of cool technology out there now. In terms of an exam of rubrics, there are a lot of amazing examples out there on the interwebs, but I just put one in here that sort of spells out on the left-hand column the sort of aspect being graded. So this is the definition or explanation of a topic, relevance to the constituents, considerations for practices, resources, and then grammar and spelling. Across the top, you have exemplary with some points, satisfactory, and then needs improvement. And then all of this has points associated with it. So students, when you're using a rubric to evaluate their work, they can really see where they need to improve. And I really like the wording on this. Words do really matter. Instead of like unsatisfactory, it just says needs improvement. And that's hopefully because this particular instructor using this example would be saying, okay, revise and resubmit this. Let's keep working on it until you have at least met the minimum requirements. So I already talked through this slide about assessment. And this slide talks about, sort of shows how universal design practices might be applied to some challenges reported by instructors. And just doing a quick time check. Okay, yes, and I'm almost done. So with the meat of it. So I think we'll be in good shape if we have a lot of questions and answers after. So for example, a student has disclosed a disability, raises her hand to answer every question that I ask in class. They're dominating conversations or discussions. And some students appear to be irritated by this. And a few are just relieved when they're not called on. How do I correct this situation? And so a universal design practice that might be applied here is to really focus on clearly setting expectations. So at the start of each class, set the stage that each student can answer only one question until everyone has responded. I think these other... I'll just read the second one to you. So my class has a lot of group-based learning, but what if a student doesn't work well in groups? So again, kind of goes back to that clear expectation. So having those instructions from the start, having a specific role for each group member, and sort of outlining that in writing and going through it verbally as well, so that each student knows what the expectations are and how they're, what team member they are in a specific group. And these are some examples of how universal design strategies can help the whole class, and maybe they were inspired by supporting one or two students. So for example, let's see. Obviously, the first one is, cannot hear, so captioning all the videos. With a student with low vision, using slides that are large, bold fonts, don't have cluttered backgrounds, goes back to one of the comments in the chat. I like the one that's second to the last. A student might have difficulty organizing large assignments, so you break down those large assignments into smaller parts with multiple due dates to teach students how to do this themselves. So you're kind of staggering the assignment, helping students to learn how to chunk out and set small deadlines. It also gives an instructor the time to check in and assess how a student is going along, so that they don't get to the end of that really big assignment or due date and realize that they've been off course, or had some misunderstanding from the get-go. So it helps, pulse check and keep students going. All right. Oh, and I see a really great suggestion in the chat. So for the first example on the last slide, having students pair share first can also help the whole class. It gives students that don't want to speak in front of everybody a chance to at least engage with their peers. And it also might encourage other students, to kind of breaks the ice, to raise their hands and speak. Thank you, Kaya. That was great. A great example. This slide features just some suggestions for getting started. I know that I just offered a ton of strategies. So what I would say is start small, start with small steps, select a specific area that you would want to sort of start applying some strategies to first. Learning goals is a really good place to start. Have students help drive the changes, like have them help be partners in learning. They can be a great help to understand what can make them more successful. We've already talked about the multiple ways students access, demonstrate, and engage with the curriculum, and work together. Enlist the help of other faculty members to talk about your experiences and what has worked with implementing UDL. You can learn more. There is a whole website on UDL on campus. There's an online course for it. We have a lot of resources at Think College. Actually, CAST UDL on campus is a great resource, and there's also webinars on this topic. So there's lots more. I'm just going to scroll through these. I just want you to know they're here for you in the slide deck, and I'm sure Amber and the rest of the team here will get those out to you since you've registered for this. So these are all clickable. You can dive in the different areas that you'd want to check out. And so I do want to mention that I talked about the term technical assistance, but we provide that as one of our services as part of our grant funding. And what that means is we have a help desk that if you email us, the thinkcollegeta@umb.edu, somebody will get back to you within 24 hours in most times, and it's a live person. It's not AI. It's me or one of my colleagues, and we will we'll share resources with you. We'll set up a phone call to talk through different aspects. We'll recommend other, colleges and universities we know about that are doing great things. And so we are here to help. It's our job. We love to help people. And we also have a ton of resources on our website, online courses, directory, resources by topic, webinars, etc. And going back to the video that I shared just a little bit ago at the start, that was part of our public awareness campaign, and that was designed for you. So if you want to share that college is an option for students with intellectual disability, we have tons of free, downloadable, short resources for you to use. It's at thinkhighered.net, so that's there for you. And if you come to our website, this just talks a little bit about what you can expect to find. You can explore resources, you can search out other programs, you can connect with other professionals, and you can learn. We have modules, help desk, and live and recorded webinars. Let me take a breath. And see, I don't see anything else in the chat as of yet. So I want to encourage you, if you have any questions, to go ahead and start asking them now. In fact, I have a slide saying questions, comments, so you can welcome to put them in the chat, or if you'd rather raise your hand and come off mute, that's certainly welcome too. Thanks, Rachel. And while you're thinking about questions or comments, I'd love for you to just sort of think to yourself, or if you feel brave enough to share in the chat, some practices that have resonated that you might want to implement this semester. Consider if you're offering different ways for students to learn, engage, and demonstrate and communicate. And then does your course design, or if you're in a department, if you're more of in a staff role, your interaction and your communication with students, do you make it accessible, usable, and inclusive for all potential students while minimizing the need for accommodations? So those are our reflection questions. Awesome. I see Rachel White has a hand up. Want to go first?
Yeah, I just wanted to, kind of the reflection / question. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to lower my hand. There we go. I think that the course that I'm doing right now, we're doing a lot of it after the fact, right? We have our content up there, and then we're trying to make it accessible. And so I would love to do more universal design. I would love to be more proactive. Do you have any strategies for tackling basically what's going to feel like a giant course revamp? Because that feels rather intimidating, but I want to move in that direction.
Sure. Yeah, I think, what's the content of the course? I'm just curious.
Well, so actually, I am the LIND director. You may be a little bit familiar with LIND, Leadership Education in Neurodevelopmental and Related Disabilities. So we have some graduate students, some postgraduate students. We also have self-advocates, and we have family members that participate. So we really do want to make sure we're presenting everything at a level that everybody can benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the question. One thing that comes to mind that might be a good starting point is that, and I didn't talk too much about it, so I can follow up with you later and share more. The development of essential questions for each of your class meetings or sessions to really, do sort of a reflection of what are the 2 or 3 key points that you want people to walk away with, and building time at the beginning and the end of that each course, and sort of driving that home and facilitating people to think about that, and either talk about it with a peer or write about it or somehow, reflect on it. That might be a way to take it like sort of session by session or class by class, class meeting by class meeting. And then I think like building it for next semester or next time you offer it, starting with the syllabus revamp, I think that will help set you up for success as maybe 2 starting points. Yeah, thanks. Great question. Are there any other questions or comments or anything anyone wants to chat about?
I have a question about rubrics and if it would be easy for you to scroll back to that slide, that might help too. But so this would be for writing, and what I'm kind of trying to do is have because I want it to like make sense to students, and then I'm trying to make it work better for me too. And so I like the like exemplary and then satisfactory, and maybe I might add like a few more in that range. But what I'm kind of wondering is, the way I was thinking of doing it is like the exemplary category, that's full points. And so if you get exemplary in all of those different things, you're going to get 100%. And then maybe the next category is like a 90%. So you could still get an A perhaps, even if you're not, because to me, you know, like a introductory writing class, a student turning in a paper is not really going to be exemplary in all categories. And so I want to make it like fair and positive and encouraging, but also like kind of accurate.
Yeah.
So my idea is basically like my first column is perfect, and then you can get 90 and then 80 and so on is kind of where it was going.
I think that's perfect. I think describing it to students as, you know, in that way of like, you're working towards that 100%. But if you walked in the door getting 100%, like, why are you here? Like, you know, like it's a growth opportunity. So making it a little bit more concrete at the top instead of exemplary, like assigning the actual like letter grade or 100% perfection. I think that's a great idea. And even like challenging students to rewrite, which I know is a lot more work for you, but it shows progress and how they can move from maybe like a 70 to, okay, with their rewrite, they're at a 90 now. And that could really foster motivation.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I think I do, when I'm doing that, want to allow students to like resubmit so they're able to actually like implement the feedback. And then I was thinking too, how to kind of like give all that background somewhere that students might like actually see it. So maybe adding like the rubric and the explanation of it into the syllabus is something I might try to do.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Absolutely. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for that example. I'm excited to see how you do that. These are really great questions and comments. I'm going to go back to the reflection. If you're wondering, like, just reflect quietly on that. I'm also going to put this up here. This is our universal email on our website for both the Think College page and the thinkhighered.net. Everything on these pages are both free and non-proprietary or anything, so it's all really good information for you. There's lots of different resources there. And then I'll give you my email too. You're welcome to email me. It's just danielle.dom and Dom is DAHM at UMB, like University of Massachusetts, Boston.edu. You can also join our mailing list using the QR code scanning there. And we don't send a ton. We do like monthly and quarterly. So you won't get spammed if you join us, but you'll get lots of great information right into your inbox. And again, I'm here, so any other questions you have or comments, or maybe you have other great examples to share, you're welcome to do that. And Amber, if I'm missing any hands or anything, just let me know.
I am not seeing anything else in the chat. I'm not seeing any other hands, so I think we are set.
Great. Awesome. And if you also, you have my references here too from the different things I was citing, but you all will have this slide deck so you can go back and visit the resources that were more relevant to you. So thank you for your time and attention and engagement. This was amazing. It was great to connect with you all. And I'm just an email or a phone call away. So if you ever need anything in this realm, I'm here.
Well, thank you, everybody. Anne has just put the survey link up into the chat. If you don't mind taking a couple of moments to click that link and fill out our survey for us. It's always great to get your feedback, get your ideas on what you'd like to see us present on in the future. Give us some feedback on today's presentation as well. That'd be wonderful. Thank you again for being here with us. We really appreciate you joining us. And thank you, Danny, so very much. This was wonderful information. I know we'll be able to get a lot out of what you shared with us today. So thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Really appreciate the invite.
Everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you.